Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the newest edition of the Renew podcast, where we are helping you reclaim your life without losing your edge. I am Kristen Andre. I'm a little loopy this morning, so we'll see how this goes. But I am with my marvelous Miss Mendoza co-host. I can't even talk, see? Whitney. Mendoza. So here's the deal. Before we get into our topic today, I am one of those wonderful people who suffers from migraines, which is fantastic.
And if you don't get them, it is a pain and an experience that you cannot explain.
It is not, and I had one yesterday to the point where I was my daughter Mia, who you guys have met, one of my co-hosts, had to drive because I was like, I can't drive, and I was like, I've got to go pick up the groceries, and she's like, do you want me to take you? I'm like, probably a good idea. And so it was just one of those. Like, I took my medication, so I don't have a headache now, but I get a little loopy. So I'm making no promises this morning because we are talking about boundaries today. So there's no telling where we could go with this. Because here's what I thought about when you and I were texting over this topic yesterday, and our friend Sam's the one that suggested this. I think it's a good topic.
Samantha McElhaney, we were having breakfast one morning, and somehow we went down the rabbit hole of my life, and she was like,
the rabbit hole that is our lives.
You and Kristen should talk about boundaries.
Kristen probably needs some boundaries. So this is, we all need them. So, all right, but here's what I was thinking, because we've got professional boundaries. We've got relational boundaries, like with, not relations, but, with our friends and our friend group and family.
Yes.
But I also think we have boundaries with ourselves. And that's kind of what I was thinking about on the drive in this morning, especially as it relates to this, because at least for me, that's the hardest boundary to set when I feel like I'm about to hit that wall, or like you just keep going and keep going. Because a lot of people, people like me who would be categorized as, let's call it type A.
Yeah.
We don't always set boundaries with ourselves.
That's why you and I get along so well.
I know, because we have no boundaries.
And we're both type A.
We are both type A. So here's what's interesting. So let's talk about professional first, because I think that's the easier one. And I hate to say easy, because I know some people are challenged with it. But professional boundaries, like I'm talking about with your bosses, your colleagues and everything, because I still am hearing, despite the fact that we've had a crazy year, I'm still hearing so many people just complain about their work environment.
Interestingly enough, I feel like it's gotten worse because we had a natural boundary that is called Atlanta traffic, or insert your popular city.
Yes.
Where you were going to arrive to the office at a specific time, and it was just expected you were, going to have some drive time, even if you got to the office at 8 or 9, and then you were going to get off.
Traffic is coming back here.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
But I feel like the difference is that not everyone is going to the office every day. And so why not have a meeting at 7 or 8 a.m. because you're at home on your computer and you don't have a drive time now.
That's true. And you're right, because that is not setting a boundary.
Yeah.
Because people just expect, and I saw this a lot, like I had to dial my clients back a little bit because I felt like they were working too much.
Yeah.
Like they would just, everything blurred together.
I mean, what else are we supposed to do?
Everything. Well,
Read
a
a
life.
book.
I don't know, have a life. But this is true because like it's setting boundaries. And I may have mentioned this on the show before. My clients are mostly over the phone anyway, because I have clients, my coaching clients, they're all over the country, and we do a lot of phone meetings. We did this before the pandemic because they're not local. But when everything started and people started working from home, people were like, let's do video calls because that's fun, right?
Yeah.
But people would be like, I'd have a call scheduled for 7:30 or 8 a.m. And 5 minutes before, they're like, why don't we do Zoom? I'm like, well, you're a guy, so of course you can roll out of bed and do Zoom. I've got hair and makeup, and there's stuff I have to do. So I had to set some boundaries. Say, nope, we're doing a phone call. Yeah. I mean, I know that doesn't sound, it's a boundary though. It is. It's like, unless you pre-scheduled with me to do video, because us ladies have things we have to do to get ready. It takes a little more.
I mean, we went back a little bit backwards, I feel, because it started in quarantine. Like some of these bad habits started in quarantine, like the meetings at either 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. for that matter. And at first we didn't know what to do with ourselves.
Right.
Like, read a book, or if you felt comfortable going and taking a walk or something like that. We were just like, great, let's work all the time. And now we're starting to make a shift back to some new level of normalcy, whatever you want to call that, and we've still got those bad habits that are in place.
So how have you set boundaries professionally?
So one thing that I'm telling all my secrets.
Tell them we need the secrets. There's no secrets here on the Renew podcast. We're open books.
Okay, open.
Except for maybe some.
Yes. So I have started putting blocks on my calendar.
Should we call this time blocking, Whitney Mendoza?
F-bots, I've heard them called, focus blocks of time.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
F-bots? F-bots.
Bots.
I like that.
Focused blocks of time.
Got it.
So like I'm going to put an F-bot on my...
I like that. I feel like I got to call my friend Shelby because she's going to love that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's different ways you could take that.
Okay.
But and I love that everyone has access to my calendar and that a meeting can just get placed on there because I don't want you to have to come to me every time going, are you available here? Are you available here?
Right.
But what I was finding was if your calendar is just an open book, then you've got no time to do the actual work that you need to get done. So I'm all for meetings and things like that, but then I have to have some time during the day to actually go and execute on whatever actionables came out of that meeting.
Well, okay, I agree with that. And here's my challenge with, because I'm a big time blocking thing. I love time blocking. Here's the challenge I see with a lot of my clients who are in a corporate environment or in environments where other people have access to their calendar. And I hate that. I hate it. No one has access to my calendar. If I have like my little Calendly, I only open up a few windows. I have a lot more open, but I'm not
I'm the same on that.
Yeah, I am not giving access to everybody.
Yep.
But here's the thing. If people have access to your calendar, they don't know how to prioritize what crap they're trying to throw in your calendar. And I have a few executives that I coach that we're really struggling this right now. And I'm going to call the ladies out because I do see this more with women than I do with men. They don't know how to say no. They haven't set boundaries with, hey, this is not something that has to occur this week.
Yeah.
So I really think we've got to start looking at who we're giving access to it because people they just throw crap on there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a boundary though.
It just happens. And if you have an assistant or whatever the case is, or maybe you can talk about that, right? Like I'm better in the morning. I do my best work in the morning. So I prefer.
I am not. If we could do this podcast at midnight, we would be really doing well.
We could, then I would be the one loopy.
Yeah.
But I mean,
we'll give it a whirl.
Oh. But I'd rather do work in the morning and then save calls for the afternoon.
Well, and that's why I mean by like prioritizing is people don't know when you're best unless you told them. They don't know what other things need to go. Because I know some of my clients, the things that are being put on their calendar are just dumb meetings. And I'm like, this could have been an email. Like I saw that coffee mug one time.
Yeah.
Survived another meeting that could have been an email.
Yeah.
But these are all, we're talking about boundaries. These are all boundary issues.
100%.
These are all like, why are you putting an hour on my calendar? This takes 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Or again, another tip is if you think the meeting is going to be 30 minutes, schedule it for 15.
Right.
Because if you only have those 15 minutes, you'll fit what you need to fit in the 15 and not have the riffraff of how are you? How was your weekend?
Exactly.
I mean, I care about you, but we also
the work we have to do expands or contracts to the time we have for it.
100%.
I mean, it's true. You try to squeeze it in there. So that's professional. But let's dive into the relationship one because I said this this is one of my favorite quotes from the book that we published. From You're Not For Everyone. And I am a big believer of this. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You teach people how to treat you. Yes. Right? You teach people how to treat you, which means whatever you are tolerating from them, they are doing.
Yeah.
Which means if you let them treat you like crap, they are going to treat you like crap. And I've had a lot of people like, oh, everybody treats me horrible. Well, you're letting them.
Yeah.
That's the ones we call it, okay, doormat, let's try to do things differently.
Yeah.
So what have you done? Like everybody treats you beautifully because you're Ms. Mendoza. So obviously no one's being mean or bad, correct?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is this is the piece that Samantha and McElhaney and I started talking about was the family boundary.
Oh, the family boundary.
Yeah, family. Oh, wait.
Should we turn off Isaac's mic?
Did you? It's not Isaac.
Okay.
No.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about relationships.
Okay.
So this could be friends.
Okay.
This could be your special friend. Well, you better not have a special friend. Isaac might get mad. But this could be, this could be friends. This could be boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, whatever, anything. It could also be family members.
Like mine.
Which seems to be where people have trouble drawing that boundary.
It is. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, mine came. It was my mother, and
she's not listening, is she? Because my mom's probably listening.
No.
Okay. We'll talk about your mom then.
Okay. My mother's actually no longer living.
Aw.
She.
And I feel bad.
No. And it was because I was talking to Isaac. I was like, oh man, Samantha was like, you guys should talk about boundaries, and we're going to talk about boundaries. And I'm like, I don't know that I've ever been like this open about that thing that is my story, my life, on air, like in a public setting. Like if you really get to know me on an individual level, things about life start to come out. But no, my mother had a drinking problem all my life. And it just got worse.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of the same thing. A lot of, and we had our great moments, right? Which I feel like made the hard moments even worse because I knew what she was capable of.
Right. Yeah.
And for years, we went, it really was just like a breakup. Like an abusive boyfriend of, treat me one way, realize that it was wrong, say you're sorry.
Right.
And I would come back.
But the actions didn't change.
100%. No. In fact, they got worse. And there was one day where I didn't go back. And fast forward, she passed away right before my 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for that. But in a sense, I guess the moral of that story is it's really hard when it comes to family, is like that is the hardest.
Yeah.
But you also have to realize at what point that other person is not going to help themselves, and you can't spend your life trying to be their life jacket.
Well, don't you think we do that a lot? Like we do try to, it's almost like we try to excuse behavior. And that's the thing 100%. Where, like I said, you teach people how to treat you. And that can also come from by allowing things to happen. It's, whether it's a family member, a parent, a child, boyfriend, girlfriend, if you let them treat you horribly, and for me at least, I don't know if it was for you, the words, we always let the words win out over the actions when it comes to boundaries.
Oh, yes.
So people can go, so especially somebody you love, if they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Well, you did it 38,000 times before, but yes, this time will be different. We fall into that trap, I think, because we want them to be good. Like we know, like you said it. Yeah. We know the potential's there.
That is what I call potential over performance. You have the potential to be better, but your performance is lacking. You do not.
So how do you draw that line? How did you, for you, I mean, maybe not in this, but in any of them, how do you draw the line, and how do you stick with your boundaries?
You do have to decide what you are willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with. Yep. Now for me, talking about Isaac, he was my rock in that instance, right? So
Isaac, look at you.
It was and is.
Awesome.
But especially when it comes to something like that, right? Like having an issue with a parent is different from telling someone to stop squatting on your calendar everywhere.
Yeah.
So having a support team, but I mean, also there were other things like when she was not invited to my wedding, and that was from the sheer fact that like I was only going to get it that one time, and I was going to be damned if it was going to be ruined.
You know what though? That's fair though, but that's a boundary.
Yep.
That's when you came in and said, look, this is my day. You're not going to mess it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Whitney, you can draw some boundaries then.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the repercussion of that. So when you draw a boundary,
yes.
What's the aftermath? Like, is it, I mean, a lot of times boundaries are painful and they hurt, and we second guess.
You do have to consider why the boundary is needed. And there, keep in mind, there are other things leading up to you feeling like you have to draw that boundary.
Yeah.
There are other conversations that you can lead off with without you feeling that you have to, for example, completely revoke someone's access to your calendar, or completely cut them off, or say, I'm only going to see you on Christmas for a couple of hours or in public places.
So there's all kind of different
Yeah, there's a lead
hierarchies.
up, right? And if you respect me and I respect you, then you will receive the message I'm trying to communicate and make adjustments. And then that's really all, right? Like, that's a boundary, but it's on a smaller scale versus like you are no longer have access to my calendar, or no, you just cannot call me.
So there's a hierarchy. And I had this conversation I had this conversation with a guy friend of mine, related to dating. And he was talking about, he's in the middle of a divorce. So, I'm not going to spill all his beans, but we were talking about like kind of the continuum. Like, and he's like, you just have to be upfront. Cause I kept saying, I was trying to challenge him a little bit on, setting boundaries with people and things of that nature. Cause you teach people. And what I kept telling him is the more you're tolerating this, and we've got to kind of say, but there's not a, you're in, you're out. There's a whole spectrum of, boundaries that you can establish with people, whether it's your spouse, your ex-spouse, a friend, a parent.
Yeah. And that's usually how it happens. There's typically we've had some conversations, you're not listening. Right. And there's the straw that broke the camel's back, where you're like, clearly this isn't working. And then there's even the hierarchy again of the boundaries that you set, from, revoking access to something to, I'm just completely, you have lost the right to be in my life.
Well, and
that's extreme. But
that it is extreme, but the way you just said it, you've lost the right to be, because I think it is a right and it's your right. But some people just kind of, because I've had to sever some relationships throughout my life that just weren't healthy, I guess we could say. And, and I've had some that come and go. Like they come back and I sever, and then I send them on their way, and damn it if they don't come back again. And I'm not smart enough to figure that out the first time. So, but it is all about setting boundaries.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're not strong enough to do that on your own, which I know I've had instances in my long life where I have not been, where that's when you need girlfriends, or in my case, lots of therapy, just to be able to kind of help see it. Because it's hard to set a boundary when you're in the middle of it. Like when you see the good in people and you really want it to work.
And back to having that support system, sometimes another person has to come in and go, you've tried all you can do.
Yes.
And there's nothing left to try.
I think most times it takes that. I know maybe it's just me because I'm stubborn, but I feel like for a lot of us, we do need that extra person, that outside person that just says, all right, I call it holding the mirror up, that holds the mirror up and goes, let's evaluate this.
Yeah.
And I know I've done that with my kids sometimes. Boundaries with kids mean rules. And, I've done that with especially my youngest, where I'll say something and, she's like, well, I shouldn't be in trouble for that. I'm like, okay, well, if you were the parent, so I'm holding up the mirror. If you were the parent, what would you do?
Yeah.
And then they of course are like, I'd let you eat cotton candy for dinner and go to Disney World every day. No, what they do is holding the mirror up, and we can't always objectively do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Somebody else has to see it.
Who do you think the hardest, not who, but like what types of relationships are the hardest to set boundaries?
I definitely think it is family. And part of that is because your emotions are involved, right? Like there's a separation there between you and your boss, or a direct report, anything like that. And you just approach the situation differently, but family tends to take things personally, right? Like it goes a little bit deeper, you get more involved. It's also interesting because you feel like it's in fact, I feel like it was, and I know Isaac will chime in, I feel like Brandon Smith said this, where it's actually easier to have like the will and testament conversation than it is about the fact of, we have kids now, and so we're going to have Thanksgiving at our house, but we'll come over later.
Yeah.
Because then they're all offended about, why are you not coming over to our house anymore? It's Thanksgiving. And you're like, because we are going to create our own traditions, but I still love you.
It's the family one's tough. Like like my ex-husband, we lived in different states, so we were at his family for Thanksgiving and my family for Christmas. That's just kind of how we did it based on. But even at his family's Thanksgiving, I was the only one from out of state, so all the other siblings all had spouses, and it got to be like that. Like everybody was eating 18 meals during the day, and then heaven forbid you have blended families or divorces and things like that, you've got 18 Thanksgivings. So what his family did is his mom, just after I guess we'd been married probably a couple years. His mom's like, we're going to do Thanksgiving on Friday. So everybody else can go to their respective families on Thursday and do family. And then we did his family's Thanksgiving on Friday. They still do it like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it was a compromise, but it made it so much easier. So instead of trying to kind of fight to be right, like let's fight for who gets the prime turkey position, his mom was kind of like, let's just do it Friday.
Yeah. Which is, kudos to her.
Yeah, it turned out to be cool.
It is hard as a child of divorced parents, the holidays just become that much more complex when that's you, right? You especially when you get older and realizing like one parent is without their child on a particular holiday. And so that can be tough. And it makes it better if you can go out and forge your own traditions.
Well, you do, and you have to look at what's best for, because I don't have, this is a bad one, I don't have, because of that Friday Thanksgiving, I never have my kids on Thanksgiving ever. The entire week they're gone. And people are like, that's got to be hard. I'm like, well, yeah, it's hard, but they get to see their grandma, every one of their aunts and uncles, all of their cousins. There's no other time of year they're going to get to see everybody.
Yeah.
So, I could say, oh no, this is, because honestly, on paper in our divorce agreement, I get them every other year, but we've never done that because it's not the right thing for the kids. And I think that's one of the things with boundaries is you have to look at not just yourself. That's first and foremost, but you also have to look at what's involved with everything else. Yeah. And we'll talk about this because I know we're going to do some divorce episodes coming up, but that's a big thing is like sometimes if somebody's either divorcing or we see this with narcissists a lot, they want to be right. They just need it to be their way. And I think when boundaries come into play, it's not about being right. It's about figuring out what works for me, what's the best thing for me and for all parties involved.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd certainly love to have the kids on Thanksgiving, but it's not the right thing for them. Like I would never want to take them away from grandma and grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have fun. And they do Christmas at Thanksgiving too. It's really cool.
Oh,
that was one of the traditions they did because they since they're all together at Thanksgiving, they're not all together at Christmas because there are a lot of different families. Sean's family, he's the baby of 4. They're all married. They all have, everybody's got kids and grandkids, and it's grown. I don't even think they have it at grandma and grandpa's house anymore. I feel like they've had to rent a place. It's gotten so big between the kids and now the grandkids, and there's great grandkids now and everything. So it expanded pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty quickly. All right. So this is like, we've talked about relationships. I think families are tough. I really do. 100%. And families or dating relationships, not that I do that because I try not to. I've got enough complication in my life. So we're gonna avoid that whatsoever. But I think those are the tough ones. But I really do think the one that's hardest to set boundaries with is ourselves.
Ooh. That's right? True, because you have to set some boundaries with yourself before you can set boundaries with anyone else.
Right.
That's true.
And here's what I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't know what the world who's listening thinks. So I would love some comments on this. I feel like we know the boundaries we need to set with ourselves.
Oh, we do.
And we don't do it.
100%.
Why is that? Is it the pleasure pain thing? I think they talked about that at church on Sunday. They did, actually. He talked about not necessarily boundaries. Sorry, I'm going to, Andy Stanley, I apologize because I'm going to misquote you. But it was a lot of like why we do things that we know aren't good for us.
Yeah. It almost feels comfortable, doesn't it?
I don't know. Well, I think some of it's comfort.
Yeah. So you get stuck in your way.
You get stuck in your way and you don't want to change. So we get stuck in a rut and we're like, we're the comfort zone. We've talked about that. So sometimes we get stuck in the comfort zone. Sometimes we're scared to kind of take that next step, to step out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we do things that we know we should have drawn that line, but darn it, they're so fun.
Ooh, they're fun?
Well, dating the bad guy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Not that I'm dating the bad guy.
I see where you're going.
I'm not dating a bad guy. I have in the past, but I'm not now.
Boundaries is like,
good guys
no,
now.
I can't go party with you Saturday because we went out Friday, okay?
Or I have to. All right, let's think back to college. I don't know if you did this in college. Have
Nope,
you ever?
I was at bed at 9 p.m.
You all right? Anyone other than Whitney?
I was lame.
Anyone other than Whitney? I mean, I've stayed out until late and gone to class by 8:30.
Dark 30.
Yeah, I had to be at class at 8. I remember in college, my professor's like, I don't even know how you made it here. I'm like, I don't either, but here I am. So we all make decisions where we know we should have set a boundary and we didn't.
Yeah.
And I am not saying be this goody, and we have all got to test the limits and have some fun, right? Life would not be fun if we didn't have fun.
This is true.
However, when these actions start having compound consequences, that's when I think it's hard to set a boundaries. When, I'm all for going out and having fun and trying things and, whatever, as long as you're not hurting somebody else. But at some point it gets to the point where we're like, okay, this is having not a great effect on me, my life, my family, my relationship, whatever it is. That's where the boundaries I feel like need to come in, whether it's with ourselves or with somebody else, because they start to have a cumulative effect after a while.
It is so much easier to set the boundary before the train is off the rails.
Right. But we let the train get off the rails a lot.
We do.
Not us, present company excluded.
Yeah, no.
But the other people that are out there.
That's hard. I also feel like, and maybe this, okay, so two things here. Like, one, I feel like women struggle with this a little bit more than men.
Okay.
Two, I am not a mother, but
I've got some kids I can hand over to you
I'm
if
good,
you'd like
thanks.
them.
I got two dogs.
Yeah, everybody know Kennedy.
We have to tell ourselves that it's okay to set a boundary. It is okay to put yourself first. It is okay to tell somebody no.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to put your armor on and do the thing that you know is best for you, or not to do the thing you know is hurting you.
So why do people not do? I mean, we all know this. So I think in terms of boundaries, we all know what boundaries we need to set. We really do. If we're being honest with ourselves, we kind of know that I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be, in a relationship with it. I had somebody tell me one time, if you've got to keep it a secret, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Ooh.
That can relate to people too. If you have to keep the person a secret, you probably shouldn't be doing them either. So it's one of these things where you've got to look at. So we know that the boundaries need to be set, and we might have set them. I'm again present company excluded.
Yeah.
But if you've said it, but we roll right over them. It's so easy to steamroll, and I don't have the answer. I think that's what's interesting is I think we have. Actually, I do have the answer. The answer is really you have to be crazy honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to have people close enough to you that are going to hold that mirror up to say, Whitney, this is not what you're supposed to be doing.
Maybe it's almost like suffering. Like,
well, that's something about the pleasure pain. I think some people like to suffer.
Yeah. Because think about like being busy, right? How, like, I can't do that because I'm so busy.
Yep.
How did you get so busy?
I think that's it. Well, that's a whole nother tangent. I think that's a BS excuse.
Yeah.
I totally think being too busy is a BS excuse.
Yeah. And whatever, is you feel like's crowding up your calendar, you at some point said yes to it.
Everybody makes a choice. Like, here's the thing, like no one's too busy for anything. They aren't priority. So if somebody says, hey, I'm too busy to see you, what they're really saying is you don't matter as much as the other things I've got going on. Yeah. That's really what it means.
Yeah.
And does that suck? Yep. Is that painful to hear? Mm-hmm. But it's the truth.
But
that's boundary. It's a boundary with yourself to realize that if somebody's going to treat you like crap, you're teaching them that.
My mind goes to the Israelites.
Of course.
Okay, ready? I know.
Of course. Why would your mind not go to the Israelites?
Why would it not? This is an old story. Ready? I'm like, because we do this.
I feel like I need to get out my hymnal now.
No, okay.
Yes, please proceed with this.
So God was like, land of milk and honey, right this way. And they were like, circled in the same spot for 40 years.
Yes. That's it. I've always thought that too, because I'm like, that's a slow learner. That is a very slow learner.
And he had already proved everything. Everything he said came to pass. He told them the way.
Right.
They knew it all. All they had to do was walk forward.
Yep.
And instead, it was like they had a limp leg and they were just going in circles.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's the comfort zone thing.
Yeah.
They're like, well, it's fine. It's fine here. And there's a new meme that's been going around. It's a little girl holding a little teddy bear. Have you seen that one?
No.
And it's Jesus, if we're getting on the Israelites here.
Yes.
So it's a little girl with a teddy bear.
Yep.
And she's holding it. And Jesus is kneeling down. And behind his back, he's got a big old teddy bear. And she says, but I love it so much, I don't want to let it go. And he says, but I've got something better. And she's like grasping on that. So it's like one of these things. I know it's a cute little meme.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a good meme. But it's one of these things where, I mean, this is boundaries. Part of it is what we're not going to do. But part of a boundary is saying, I'm not going to continue doing this same thing that I know is not allowing me to grow, allowing me to move forward. And this could be personally, professionally, financially, because I'm on all three. Personally, it's relationships. Professionally, it's what you're tolerating at work. And financially, the boundaries are really all the bad financial decisions we're making that, we talked about, Matt and I talked about this before, that's allowing us to perpetually end up in debt or not put ourselves in a good financial situation.
Yeah.
So it's all these things. I think it all relates back. We need to set some boundaries.
Yeah.
So we have Sam Alcohaney joining us, and then we also have Pineapple Staffing, FW Styles, and Smith 547.
All right, Sam McElhaney. How about that? Because Sam McElhaney, this is your fault. We are talking about boundaries here because I hear you and Miss Mendoza had quite the
personal
convo on
request.
So it's it's true, and I'd love you guys' comments. Which one is the hardest? Is it personal? Is it professional? Or is it boundaries with yourself? For me, like I said, it's boundaries with. I think for me, it's myself. Professionally, I'm fine. I mean, I work for myself, so it's kind of, hey, here's what we think. Personally, it's gotten better. I was terrible at setting boundaries with friendships and relationships early on, for sure, terrible. That's gotten better. Maybe it's because I avoid them, but not the boundaries, the relationships.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. But for me, it's been the hardest to set boundaries with myself. And like I was saying earlier, if you guys are just tuning in, this is kind of we're going to call it loopy day for me because I've been running, like I've got a lot of stuff going on professionally. And honestly, I've got a lot of stuff personally that I won't go into on air, but a lot of stuff going on where my head's just about at the limit. And I think that's why I keep getting migraines. But I was yesterday to the point, as I said earlier, that I literally thought I was going to pass out. Like, and the girls are looking at me like, I don't think you should really be driving. So they're driving me around and doing all kinds. The good thing is they did their chores. I know. I was like, Kennedy, I really need you to do the dishes. Okay, Mom. I'm like, nice. So maybe I'm going to be faking a migraine more often. But it's one of these things where I think it's because I just let myself run too hard for a while. Do you ever do that? Do you just kind of run too hard where you just hit the proverbial wall and your body just is like, yeah, I'm done, tapping out?
Yeah. 100%.
I think my body was tapping out this week.
Yeah. I'm fresh because I listen to podcasts in the morning too. So I was listening to one again, our friend Brendan Smith this morning, and he was quoting Greg Maddux.
Okay.
That said the difference between like a good pitcher and a Hall of Famer is when they get in trouble, the good pitcher will throw harder. The Hall of Famer will actually throw softer.
Oh.
So instead of...
I like that. Greg Maddux throwing down some knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So instead of like, I have all this stuff to do and I'm just going to push through it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I'm just going to take a couple of hours and go like revive myself
like
and then
come.
I throw that in there.
I like
just
that.
Work that in there.
But it's true. But here's the thing is sometimes, because I did that last weekend. I did that. I was like, you know what? I had a lot of work to get done. And I was like, I'm kind of tired. And I see, Sam, you just said the weather will give you those headaches. That's true. I do think there's been some of the weather because I'm not the only one suffering these. But over the weekend, I was like, you know what? I got a lot of work I need to do, but I'm kind of worn out. My dad and stepmom had come in town. I was like, all right, let's just take family time.
Yeah.
So I didn't do much work over the weekend. I did kind of relax a little bit and not get stuff done because I wasn't feeling the greatest then either. But now that I took that time and I threw slower, to your analogy, now I got a lot more pitches I need to do because I slowed down for a little. So it's kind of the balance.
Yeah,
it's finding the
that's true.
balance. And I'm a go person for sure. Like I'm always on 11. But there's got to be, the boundaries, it's just with yourself. Like that's
Yeah.
for me, that's the hardest. It's harder than it is with all the other ones, I think.
Kristen Andre and Whitney Mendoza are looking for interns. If you know anyone,
That's right. We do need some
drop it in the
interns.
comments.
I have children who intern, and they're terrible at. Actually, one of mine is good. She's a good intern, but
Yeah,
my other one is. We're gonna need to step it up a little bit. So let's talk about that because I know you don't have kids, but I know Sam's listening and she's got kids, and I see Phil on here, a lot, Alex on here. There's a lot of people with kids. Let's talk about that for a minute because is it just me or do those little boogers stress you out sometimes?
That's why I don't have any.
I'm telling you're smart. All right, so we've determined Whitney's the smart one on the show here, but how do you set boundaries with kids? And I'm not talking about rules and chores and all that, but when they're driving you nuts, like one of mine was doing yesterday. I shan't name names, but anyone listening knows who we're talking about. How do you set those boundaries?
This is really good because if you set them now, they're not going to have, they see you setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't have as much of an issue setting them when they're older. I do believe that if they see you protecting yourself, then they're going to be like, I have a right to do the same.
I agree with that. But that brings up, not really brings up, but here's where my head went with that.
Okay.
I do set boundaries with the kids, and I feel like, I'm modeling that for them, to your point.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting. And I think
They
this
try to
applies
push your
to,
boundaries?
they push every friggin' boundary I have.
Well, I don't have them.
But I know, smart girl. But here's the thing. What I will say is one of the things with boundaries, and I feel like, so this is an interesting point. Most of us are good at setting them, right? So we can set the boundaries. But keeping the boundaries is a whole different story.
Yeah, we don't enforce them.
We don't enforce them. And that's where I think the kids, because those little suckers will wear you down. They'll wear you down. And I don't just mean kids. The annoying coworker, the mom that won't give up, the dad that pushes too hard, whatever they are, we may be good at setting boundaries, but enforcing them once we're worn the heck out is tough. That's what Sam says is about maintaining them. It's true. So how do we maintain them? Because I think that's a big differentiation. It's not just setting them, it's keeping them in place.
Yeah.
It's like we don't just set the boundary and go, I said it, but yeah, you don't have to follow it.
I almost feel like that is one of those conversations where if you're having an argument, yelling at each other in the moment does nothing but further fuel the argument.
Because the best way to calm a woman down is to tell a woman to calm down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. To yell it at her at that.
Yes. Just calm
down.
You're overreacting. Oh, what?
Yeah. Let me tell you about that. But if you set me down in a couple of days and you're like, okay, I think we went a little wonky there and talk about it.
Right.
That could bring you back to center of like, this is why I have this particular boundary.
Yeah.
When I go take a bubble bath, that is not your cue to sit outside the door and bang on it. I hear that happens when
have you been at my house?
I hear stories.
It is true. If you ask any one of my children what I want for any holiday, I will bring them in here next time. We'll ask, what does your mom want for her birthday or Christmas? You know what they're going to say?
Bath bombs.
No, they're going to say to pee in peace.
Oh, okay.
That is it. In 22 years, there may have been 3 times I've been able to just go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah.
Just whether it's a bubble bath, I just sometimes like I'm going to the bathroom and they're like, but I need you. What do you need? Everything okay? Yeah, I just had a book report due in 8 weeks. I thought I'd ask you about. I don't know. Anyway.
They have like built-in radars.
It is, but all right. So setting boundaries is good because they know the boundary has been set. Please do not bother me during my bubble bath. If I have poured a glass of wine and gone into my little spa bathroom and started some bubbles, please don't bother me. So the boundary's there.
Yeah.
They just traipse right over it. And this could be the same thing for spouses. I'm not saying, Isaac, I'm not saying you cross over the boundaries.
No.
However, some spouses, maybe one I used to be married to, we could set the boundaries and they go away. Same thing with friends. Same thing with parents. So maintaining. Miss McElhaney, who's still watching, how do you maintain them? How do you do it?
I mean, there is an off switch on our phones. I like to use it every now and then. You just
What do you mean off switch? Oh, turn it off?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. No, I turn
this button.
Yeah, I do turn my text notifications off.
Yeah.
I do that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then we're going to slip up, but you have to do those things because again, the more that you allow someone to cross that boundary, then that's what they're going to do, because you've essentially just told them
Yes.
that you're not serious about it.
Well, it goes back to you teach people how to treat you.
100%.
Because if you make an exception,
Yep.
then the exception is now the boundary,
Yep.
right? So if you set a boundary and you move the line, that's now the line.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're a teenager and whatever you're experimenting with as a teenager, whether it be drugs or smoking or alcohol or the relations or anything like that. Once you move the boundary now has a new boundary.
Yep.
It's hard to go back.
Yeah.
You can't just say, okay, I have now done meth and I'm just going to go back to drinking a gimlet. I don't know. I'm terrible with these things, but it's true. I mean, it's once the boundary is moved, it's moved.
Yeah.
And can you reset it? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot because you've seen, you've pushed or you've allowed somebody else to push it further.
Yeah. And again, I mean, you can start by having that conversation, and if that person continues to push the boundary, I mean, you have going back to the right that you have to be in my space.
Yep.
I have the right to get up and move and go somewhere else. Now, sometimes that's harder than others. Again, like if you're going through a divorce, right? Like you can't just be like, peace, I'm out, and move to France, because there's children and money and houses and things like that involved. Same thing with the job. It'd be really hard to leave your job right now. I mean, just where we are in the economy and things just...
There are people hiring.
That's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it would take time to find that job.
It would.
So you can't just throw your arms up and say, I quit, until you find something else better. But you can start looking now. I mean, like if there have been boundaries that someone's trampled on and no one's listening, then start looking for something else.
Well, and the
I think
biggest thing
people
is
don't have the courage though sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I says they don't have the courage.
That's
It's
a great
true,
word.
but you've got, first and foremost, you have to know your boundaries.
Yeah.
And you've got to be clear, and these are what they are. And a boundary is not like a hypothetical. It's not, when I say know your boundaries, it doesn't mean like, oh, this would be kind of cool. Your boundary is this is how it's going to be. And if it is not this way, then I am cool with you exiting. And that's, that goes to maintaining them, because I feel like we have to be strong in our conviction for what the boundaries are. And if people don't respect our boundary, it's a respect thing.
Yeah.
Like whether it's a boss or, a partner, business partner or romantic partner, whatever it is, if they don't respect your boundaries, they aren't respecting you. And we need to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, is this someone that I want to be in a relationship? And it's the same thing with you. Like I said, I do way better with boundaries with other people than I do with myself. Like with me, I let myself off the hook a little bit. I'm like, I'll just push harder. I like the Maddox analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to Isaac's word, so his words, courage, and you were also talking about reset. I mean, you do come to because I would say that was me, right? For years, I didn't have the courage to do what I needed to do, but then I reached a point when enough was enough. And then I had a mental reset and said, okay, this is the new direction I'm going in.
It's true. And Sam just said counseling from girl, I am with you, because the amount, the vacation, probably not even the vacation, the lake house I could buy with what I've spent on counseling over the years, but it's far worth it. But Sam says counseling taught her, 1, breathe. So don't react right away. 2, let both parties acknowledge each other. So I agree with that. Kind of say, okay, here's how I'm feeling. How are you experiencing this? And then 3, consequences don't have to come right away and should be a joint decision. So it's like, it goes back to the respect thing. It's like, let's have a conversation about this. This is what I need, but I feel like, Sam, after reading that, I'm going to be having a lot of conversations with myself over, kind of like, okay, we need to slow down. I'm going to remember that baseball. I think I'm going to go get a baseball out of the garage and just keep it with me to remind to slow the pitches down a little bit.
That's good.
I kind of like, I'm a visual person.
That's good.
I like the visual.
I like that analogy.
It's true though. I like that. So what do you take away from all this, Whitney? What will you change? Like, for me, like I said, I'm good with other people. I will set them all day long. And I've actually gotten good about enforcing the boundaries with therapy. Like, Lisa, my coach and therapist is she's all on me if I don't enforce my boundaries. But I get that. So it's me. I think that's my opportunity for me.
This counseling, can I just run through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A and pick up some of that on my way home?
I feel like, Tammy, Lisa, some of my friends that are listening that I know are therapists, that actually could be a really nice thing. But I think with a counselor, you have to get to know them. So the drive-through, unless you're going to use the same drive-through counseling could be a way with the future.
If you're working the night shift and I can just come by and be like,
I will say, you joke, but there's a lot of the digital stuff now. Like a lot of it's like most of my, people that I see or the sessions I have, they're not in person.
I probably ought to get in on some of that.
You should. Didn't we talk about a group rate? I think we were going to get me, you, and Matt a group rate last time he was here.
There have been times in life where I'm like, if I would have gone through therapy, it probably would have fixed this by now.
But it's all the things, and it's a joke with my kids, like, I'll pay for your therapy when you're older. Because we all have traumas, whether they're big traumas or micro traumas that my friend Nicole's been on here and talked about before. We all have things we go through that set the way we act and react to things in life. And some of us are great at setting boundaries, and some of us are great at being walked over. But the main thing is figuring out if it's professional, personal relationships, or yourself that you need to set the boundaries with, and start there.
Yeah.
Don't try to set them all at once. I think you've got to just set a couple, like, okay, here's the biggest challenge for me.
Right.
And how can we kind of set that going forward?
Yeah.
Start with one.
I mean, something for me was the feeling of maintaining that enforced boundary. It's kind of like if you do it, like going to the gym, right? If I'm if I tell myself I'm going to go 3 times a week and I do that, and I can see and feel the changes within.
Yes.
It's a positive reinforcement to continue to do it. So like, just try it. Try to keep a boundary enforced, and you'll be like, oh yeah.
And you do need to know like your why behind it. Like you need to go. So going to the gym, like you've got a good payoff, right? So that's like, you're like, all right, I can see me. I'm dropping the LBs. It's almost bathing suit season. We're good. Some boundaries are harder.
Yeah.
So like the person you haven't seen this because you're not single. The person that you've blocked on your phone.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'll get that urge to be like, maybe I should unblock them. I'm not speaking from personal experience, or maybe I am. But that's when I'm saying your mirror has to come in. That's where you're calling. Like I literally have, and I'm not going to say names, obviously, because you guys don't know who this is anyway. But one of the individuals on my phone that is currently blocked, like I have a phone a friend where if I feel the need to unblock this person who is a did not respect boundaries person, right?
Yeah, that's call that friend.
Why he got blocked. Then I phone a friend. I call my friend and I say, Jessica's my phone a friend. I say, Jess, feeling like I should reach out to what's his name? And she goes, bring me your phone. We literally have done that before where I'm like, I'm going to leave my phone with you for the weekend because I'm going to want to unblock. You've got to know when you're triggered and not. This is all true. I'm giving y'all way too much information.
But that's good.
Everybody's curious and everybody's like, who is this blocked individual?
Great though, because that's true where you're talking about, a weakness in the chain, and then you have your go-to.
He is for sure a weakness in the chain. Yes.
But he'll
remain blocked. We've gone through unblocking, blocking. He's blocked. We're blocked now. But it's true. You have a weakness in the chain.
Yeah.
And it just takes one. The chain just falls apart.
It's true.
Yeah.
And
that's a boundary issue.
It is.
So that's why I was saying you're being very clear in your why. Like play it out. What's this look like?
Yeah.
And I've had, my friend Jess and my coach Lisa have both been like, let's play this out. Yeah. It never plays out good. When we run the scenario out after unblocking, it is never a good scenario.
Yeah.
So quit playing the game.
You do have to think about both. I mean, you do. You have to think about what life is like without that person, and then you have to think about what life is like without that person.
And both without the person is good.
Yeah.
But this could be, and this different with kids. Like your kids, you can't really get rid of them. You're not supposed to. It's frowned upon. But you can still set healthy boundaries. Yeah. So the thing is, if someone is going to be allowed to remain in your life, kids, friends, whatever, they have to, the healthy boundaries has to be something that's observed by both parties.
Yeah.
And if they can't, they need to vamoose. Because again, you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
So Whitney, what boundary are you working on? Because for me, I'll go and throw mine's with me. I'll give you some time to think. Mine is with me. I think I love the baseball analogy that you gave. Greg Maddox, thank you for that, because I had not heard that. I like that. But it is, for me, is that when I feel like I need to run harder, I need to sit for a minute and just evaluate do I need to just slow? Because I do think slow is probably where maybe that'll get rid of these darn migraines, because there's only so many loopy days I can have and still function.
Yeah. Well, and I'm
only loopy for a couple hours, and I did just take the medication. So Lord knows where we've gone this morning. But
I feel like it was great.
Good. Maybe I should medicate more often. How about that?
We had Dolly Parton on.
We didn't know we did. That I would have remembered. I am still.
She came in.
Dolly, I feel like Dolly sets boundaries because, as you know, with Dolly being my spirit animal, I think, not an animal, my spirit person, I bet she does. I'm going to bet Dolly is not scared of setting the boundaries.
Oh, yeah, she does. There's a lot that we don't know about Dolly.
Still trying to get her on. So, Dolly, we need you. We need you, girl. We need you.
We do.
But it's true. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Dolly can set some boundaries because she's been through some rough stuff, and I think she probably had to toughen up. It's really just teaching people how we want to be treated and respected. I think that's I'm gonna stick with that because I think it is a mutual respect thing. And if somebody doesn't respect you enough to respect your boundaries, and I don't care where you set the boundaries, I just want you to set them wherever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And the person, whether it's the professional, personal, or yourself, they have to respect you enough. And if they don't, you got to really evaluate whether or not they have earned a space in your little world.
Yeah, that's good.
So what's your boundary, Miss Whitney? What are we working on now?
I did like what you said about self because this morning I was like, wow, I got a lot of stuff to get done. I don't even know where to start. Okay, cool. We'll begin there.
Okay.
But again, that goes back to that's on me, right? Everything that's on my calendar, everything that's piling on my to-do list is on me because it's within my power to delegate and elevate.
Yep.
or keep it on my list and try to get it all done myself. And so I would say that's a personal boundary too, because that was me who allowed all that to be.
I think that's going to be the hard one. I think it's going to be the personal one.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. So Sam, thank you for the suggestions.
Great.
So I know you're watching on Instagram. I think it was good. We may have to tap back into this. So I'm curious. Drop us some notes and comments after you watch this and let us know what you're working on, because I think the boundaries are going to be a big thing as we go forward and we continue to dive back in to whatever life is looking like for you now. Hopefully it's better than it was before. But I think we got to keep diving in and pushing, setting, pushing, and enforcing some boundaries. All right, Miss Mendoza, thank you for being here. Cheers to our caffeine this morning. Thank you guys for being here, and we will see you again next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern for another episode of Renew. Have a great week.